People are taking additional risks to get around long road trains, and whether it be an underestimation or just an impatience that puts them at risk.
Hello and welcome to the Talking Transport Show. I'm your host, Jacquelene Brother, and joining us here today is Rob Sharpe, Executive Officer of Transafe Western Australia. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Jacqueline. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Rob, you're a stalwart of the transport industry. You come from a trucking father and then a truck driver yourself, but you were a milk carter or a milk driver, I see from your bio that you did quite a lot of miles or kilometres, I should say, delivering, or not delivering milk, but carting milk. And so a huge background in driving and transport, and also in corporate and other parts of the industry that gives you a great background for your role as the Executive Officer of Transafe. I know your bio is quite big, and that'll go out with the show, of course. So sorry that we didn't have time to do the whole spiel today, but I know from your background you're the right man for the job. Now you have quite a few programs under Transafe. Do you want to tell us about some of them right from the beginning?
Yeah, Jacqueline, Transafe WA has been hosting road safety forums for sort of around about 14 years. And just recently, 3 years ago, we launched our instructor safety truck, which is a custom-built truck and trailer that travels around to schools and community events. And this truck is primarily designed to give our future and current road users a bit better understanding, a bit more awareness around interacting safely with trucks out on the road. We also have a Give a Truck campaign, which is all about giving a truck more space, more room, more attention, and more vision on the road. So just highlighting trucks' blind spots, also highlighting the dangers of turning trucks, overtaking, and other safety messages around just doing the right thing around truckies and giving them a bit more space than the space they need.
So the instructor truck, I've seen photos, of course, of that, and may have seen some video on it, but that's been a huge boost over there for road safety. And you have it at the truck shows, I believe. I've seen it. And does that have a simulator in it, Rob?
Yeah, so Jacqueline, it's actually been out to 193 events in the last 3
Wow.
years. We've had 56,000 people go through the trailer and complete our VR experience. So the VR experience is all about getting our participants to sit down in one of our 10 truck seats. Then we put a set of VR headset goggles onto their participants, and then we immerse them into the truck's cabin, and they get to see all the overtaking scenarios, the blind spots, etc., from a truck driver's point of view, and also from an aerial point of view as well. So it gives them a lot better grounding and education and awareness around being in and around trucks. We've also got touchscreen activities inside the trailer as well. We've got 10 iPads in there, and people can do a self-paced, age-appropriate quiz learning on those. And there's also a projector screen in the very back that plays a montage of road safety videos, as well as we give our participants the opportunity to climb up into the truck's cabin, sit in the truck's seat, and that reinforces the messages that we're telling them about the blind spots as well. So they get to see that firsthand.
I always find when you're giving a talk about something, I remember, especially about blind spots, I did a speech on that for my Toastmasters once, and the people in the room were just blown away by the blind spots. They're like, I've been driving for X years and I never understood. And one of the older gentlemen in there, he's talked about it for several years later. I'll never forget that speech. He said it made me drive totally differently. But also at one point when Vic Roads had a truck going around to safety shows and that here, I took it to my work where I was working at the time. And the thing, actually, even all the women that worked there and worked around trucks every day, what they couldn't comprehend was the stopping distances. They just don't comprehend, because it's just not something that's on their dance card that they actually think about at any stage of what they're doing. So I think things like the instructor truck are just so vital. in not only young people coming into the industry, but the people that have been driving for 20 years that have never ever had anything to do with trucks in their life, and probably never driven outside their own city or their own 200k radius or something.
Yeah. Look, I don't think motorists deliberately go out there to put themselves in dangerous situations. I believe that it's definitely some knowledge gaps out there that the lack of awareness causes them to put themselves into situations
Oh,
where they've
absolutely.
harmed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Nobody goes out there to cause themselves or the truck driver any unsafe situation. Like, well, not unless they're out there to commit suicide, which you don't want to think about. But there definitely nobody goes out there to deliberately cause anybody any hassles that they don't need to. It's just either they're unaware or unthinking at the time because their mind is on something totally elsewhere. But I think that awareness is something we need to bring not only into our schools and our new drivers, and that but we also need to bring it to, as I said, to other drivers that, may only take a long trip once a year, or may only, take, other than to work and back, may only, get out on the road with a lot of other road users or in traffic, a couple of times or one, 2 times a year. And that's why I think these, not only going to truck shows, but going to these other places is so important for things like It's Truck to Truck.
Yeah, and if we can get some more information put into the hazard perception test at the point of licensing for these young drivers, that'd be great too. Because let's face it, we get our license and we jump into a vehicle, normally with a bunch of friends, and we head off on a road trip. It's probably the first time we've travelled for more than an hour at a time. In most cases, it's the first time we've travelled at more than 100 kilometres an hour because of the freeway speed limits and stuff that you've probably been driving in for the first part of your license and your training, and now they're on the open road, interacting with road trains that they sort of feel compelled to want to get around, and that's where quite often things go astray, and yeah, doesn't
Well, I
end
do.
well.
They do, and I think the big thing for a lot of, and obviously I'm from the country. I live in the city now, but the thing is, a lot of them don't understand how long it takes to do, or if they get off the edge, they overcorrect and don't know how to get it back. And if you've got someone else in the car, you're not. They haven't been concentrating as much as they would have been if they were on their own, possibly. And I think that's where they have a lot of those issues. So, I think we need to get them while they're in schools before they actually go out to do their license training. I think that's where it's really important as well. The younger we get them, the better their training is going to be. I think that's really vital.
Yeah. And another problem that we're seeing more of too, Jacqueline, is that people in vehicles now, especially the younger kids and whatnot, are addicted to their screens, and they're not actually watching any and learning any roadcraft from mum and dad as they're driving along. They're too busy with their heads buried into a screen. And then when they do go to get their license, they've had no exposure to roadcraft from mum and dad up to that point, because they've been preoccupied. So then it's also the problem of once they start driving, they get a little bit bored on a long trip. The first thing they do is reach for their devices, and that's obviously a very unsafe action to do. And we know the statistics from there that it doesn't end well.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that's right. Like, I grew up with nothing else in the car but your parents and your squabbling siblings. And so you were concentrating looking for kangaroos or wild pigs or something, so that you were always, keep your eyes open, what's happening. And of course, then when you did scream at your mother that there was a kangaroo coming, she was like, "Oh, yeah."
And that's exactly right. Active passengers are what we need in vehicles for, it may just you may see something as a passenger that the driver doesn't, whether it be a car coming, from a side paddock or whatever it might be, that may just save both your lives. So, we encourage active passengers as well.
Well, absolutely. And it's also the same thing as if your passenger gets in the car and goes straight to sleep. That's very
Mm.
detrimental. If you do that, if you have a passenger that does that, and it's very all these things that really, people don't think about, they aren't taught, and aren't made aware of, and they're just, especially, the distances are so great in so much of Australia that everyday people just drive. Like, the nearest city can be 5 or 6 hours away. You can be 100 k's and not see another thing, not another car, not another anything except a wild animal. and
Yeah,
they don't take that into account when they're teaching them to drive, because they're not driving that far when they're doing their X amount of hours to get their license. So that's something that that's why we need these sort of programs. And the Give a Truck Some Space campaign, that's a really vital thing as well, because I haven't seen it, of course, but I think no, that's not taking into account that how much space they need, not just around them, but to stop, that they need to overtake, that they need to turn when they're trying to turn into a right or left or whatever. So many people don't understand that you're supposed to stay back and give them space. Even if you're coming from the opposite direction, if you don't stay back far enough, they can't turn in. And you see that
that's right.
so much on the internet, where they've like, man, back up. I can't actually go around that corner while even though you're facing me, you're still in my way.
That's right. So with our Give a Truck campaign, that's it's also inside our safety truck as well. So there, when people see those messages there, they actually, the biggest takeaways we have is blind spots, and the second biggest takeaway is the "Do not overtake turning vehicle" sign and what that actually means. And if you see a vehicle with that on the back of their truck or trailer, then they are legally allowed to use the second or third lane to execute a left or right turn. So that's a big one for a lot of people that haven't been around trucks, to actually understand what that signage on the back of a vehicle means.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, as I said, I've worked with people who work with trucking companies, and they're going, "Oh, is that what that sign means?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you need to take a walk around the yard and talk to the truck drivers about what the actual signs mean around those vehicles, and learn something about the company you're working for,
Yeah,
because that's
exactly.
really vital. Do you want to talk about them? You've been doing them for some time, and obviously they're very well attended and very popular. Do you want to talk about what you covered in some of them and how they work?
Yeah, so we've actually we've hosted 36 road safety forums. Sorry, 35 road safety forums up to today. We're just planning 36 at the moment. So these road safety forums, we do host them in regional and metropolitan areas. So we've been around for everywhere: Esperance, Karratha, Albany, sort of everywhere in between. And like I say, we do the metro ones. Try and do two of those a year, and try and do two regional ones a year as well. And in those forums, we try to get together the industry stakeholders, everyone from drivers right through to the decision makers. We also have presentations from some of our sponsors, as well as Main Roads, WA Police, and other organisations that have value to give to our participants there. So yeah, they're well attended. We are trying to get more and more people along to these forums as well, because the forums, if you want a voice, the forums are a place where you can actually talk to the people that are making the decisions out there. So
And what sort of, that's a great cross section of people to have along to them. What sort of subjects have you covered in those? Is it sort of the same basic thing, or do you cover a whole band of things, or do you have a theme for the year, or how do you pick what you decide to do?
yeah, sometimes it's based on availability of who we can get to come along, and then as we start to develop a bit of a theme as we have our presenters come on board. But normally it's a regional update from Main Roads, same as a regional update from WA Police as well, and just to let us know where all their pain and pressure points are. We also have our sponsors that come along, and they might have new products that benefit the industry, or just a new ways of doing things, compliance, alcohol and drug testing. So we cover a fairly broad area of chain of responsibility, a bit of everything.
Okay, so it's just really to keep everybody really well informed on what's happening out there in the industry from all aspects of the industry. Especially, I hadn't realised, but it's great that you have the police involved. I think we don't include them often. We don't include them enough, and they're such a great resource. And they're also great to have working with you. We should never see them as being on the other side. They're always, I think, most, and I mean, there's always the odd variant out there in any industry, but most police are really happy to work with you. to make the industry safer and to do anything they can to from both sides to have good advice and to really recommend how we can work together, because they're the people that are on site when things go wrong and have to bear the brunt of that. So as I said, I didn't realise that you had the police involved at such a ground level, and I think that's fabulous because funnily enough, my Uber driver this morning was an ex-policeman of 18 years in the force, and a fabulous conversation all the way here for my hour this morning. And yeah, just really, really need to be included on a much higher level than I think we have done. We have done in the past, but I don't think we do as much as we used to. Especially now we've got to have the NHBR over here, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think the police do actually appreciate the invitation to come along and present. They also get a lot of information back from the participants in the room as to where we're finding pressure points, what we're finding issues on the road. For example, unsafe overtaking is a very, very common thing that we're finding of late, that people are taking additional risks to get around long road trains, and we're relaying that back to the police as well. And people are encouraged to hand in dash camera footage, and they will take it seriously from there and prosecute.
Well, I think that's to everybody's advantage, isn't it? If you can work together to overcome those sorts of things, I think if you can eradicate that or even bring it down to, in any way that they can follow those things up, it's just got to be so much easier on them and so much safer for our drivers if they can do something like that. I think it's really, really vital, especially over there where there's such long distances. The drivers are out there so much on their own, and they don't want to be picking up those pieces either, or putting themselves at risk.
That's right. And we're finding that, we've got unique challenges here in WA and unique situations that, we've got some extra long road trains over here. We're looking at 60 plus meters at the moment for a road train. So, people underestimate the time it takes to get around those road trains safely. And, whether it be an underestimation or just impatience that puts them at risk.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of people just have no idea at all, and they just want to get past at all costs, and unfortunately, sometimes it is at all costs, and that's something the driver doesn't need to have on his mind at the end of the day. So, I think that's really great. So, do you have any future plans for any new programs or any new advocacy, new forum coming up? Anything exciting going on?
Jacqueline, being a not-for-profit organisation, some of our initiatives that we'd like to get up and running are sometimes having to be shelved for periods of time until we can get the funding to actually get some of those projects off the ground. So funding is our key at the moment. If we can get some more government support. We initially got some support from the NHVR and also the Road Safety Commission here in Western Australia to launch our project, which is the instructor safety truck, our biggest and best so far. But any ongoing funding for that is always a stretch. We've got to reach out to industry and community for that funding, which is a bit difficult. If we can get some ongoing funding secured, then that allows us to work on a few more projects. But at the moment, we're just still planning our road safety forums. We've still got the instructor safety truck out there, and the Give a Truck campaign is active. So we're pushing ahead, but we've got some interesting things in the pipeline, which probably in about a month or two I'll be able to let you know a bit more about. But we're fairly excited for Transafe's future at this stage.
Oh, that's great. Well, I look forward to hearing them. The future of the instructor truck. So that's an ongoing campaign to find funding for that, because obviously it's such an amazing initiative that needs to be continually funded. I think that's something that everybody in the industry struggles for funding, and I guess we all go back to put our hands in the same pockets all the time, unfortunately. But it's something that's so vital to not only our industry but to the general public, that it raises so much awareness and brings so much value to the general public in raising this awareness to them, that there's got to be, I guess, someone or some government funding, either national or federal or state out there that can hopefully bring that money into that, because it'd be, yeah, like as I said, in the economy we're in at the moment, everybody's buying for those that same funding, and it makes it very, very
Yeah.
difficult. But that's just such a vital initiative to see that continue and grow stronger is just so important. And so I hope that's something that people are just looking at and going, yes, we need to put more money into that, because it's really, really important, and will become more important as our population, they start getting more out on the roads, and our older population probably needs a bit more instruction too, really,
Yeah.
on how to do that. So, yeah, I don't really know what the answer is there, and none of us do, I guess. But that's
Yeah. Well, I think
yeah.
we're quite fortunate in that instructors' popularity has actually, got to a point where people are reaching out to us to have the truck at their community events and shows. So, thankfully, we do find sponsors to get the truck out to different events, and they're normally sponsors that have definitely a vested interest in road safety and the industry as well. So we do thank our safety partners and all of our sponsors that we do pick up for events, because they're the ones that get instructor to these places. But being fully funded, then we can get into the schools and other areas that may not have the funding available for the truck to be there.
We're very lucky, aren't we, in the trucking industry, that we have so many amazing people that put so much money and time
Yeah,
into these sort of initiatives, because, without them, we'd be just totally underfunded and undervalued. But you can't credit how many people there are willing to back so many of the initiatives right throughout Australia. And I wouldn't even try to think of how much money is put in by companies over the years for all these sort of initiatives, and the charities that they support every year for the trucking industry, that comes through the trucking industry, is just incredible.
yeah.
So,
This is my first time working for a not-for-profit organisation throughout my career, and I must say that working for a not-for-profit, you do meet a lot of great people, and they're the people that want to support great initiatives. So without them, we are grounded basically.
absolutely, and it's working for the not-for-profit. I think you're working with a not-for-profit in the transport industry, so that combination gives you double great people. Because I worked
Yeah,
in
that's it.
transport for 56 years now, and you couldn't get better people. I don't care if you look the world over. So I think that both of those things are true, and I think we're very, very fortunate to be able to do that. And as I said, the amount of times that companies just keep paying, and supporting these things that make our life better is incredible.
Yeah,
So I think we should be very grateful for all of that.
absolutely.
So, Rob, if you've got nothing else to share with me until another month or so, we might
Yeah,
finish up there if you're happy with that, and
yeah, absolutely. We'll
we'll
keep that
talk.
cat in the bag.
Yeah, well, my cats are all asleep. So we'll definitely do that, and we will talk again. We'll book another time when you've got some news to share. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really happy to have you, and we will talk again soon. And
Thank you so much.
thank you for joining us on the Talking Transport show today, and join us again soon for the next session. Thank you.